Welcome to another segment of the CPO Arena. I am your host, moderator, Jon Hansen. Now, before we get into the segment, for those joining us perhaps for the first time, you've already watched our segment or probably already familiar with this, but the whole idea of the CPO Arena is broken down to several segments. Number one, we introduce you to the service provider who will present in about 3 to 5 minutes, a little bit of overview of their company, perhaps company history, and a little bit of understanding as to the origins of their solution. They'll then go to the next stage, which is do an actual presentation or an overview presentation of the solution and the key points of value or the unique attributes that make it work and run and worth noting. After that, we will then introduce and bring our panel back, who will ask questions of our service provider presenters in terms of what they've seen. And finally, in the last 5-8 minutes, we'll do what's known as a beef and bouquet segment, where they will provide both positive feedback and perhaps, if warranted, a little bit of critiquing and insight that can benefit not only the provider, but of course you, the viewing audience. Now, without further delay, I want to first of all introduce you to our panel, who will take about 30-40 seconds to give a little bit of overview of themselves, starting with Cheryl Hayes. Cheryl, if you could turn on your camera, please. Welcome. It's good to have you back again.
Good morning. Is my camera on?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you for having us, and we're looking forward to hearing your presentation. Currently, I am the Director of Procurement for Stryker, having spent about 16 years with EMC, acquired by Dell, all in supply chain and procurement. So delighted to be here and look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Thank you, Cheryl. If you could turn off your camera, and I'll invite Hervé Legendre to turn on his and give us a little bit of background. And again, the thing I always say when I introduce you, Hervé, is that we have an international flavor because you're from overseas in France, but I'll leave the rest to you and explain a little bit about your background.
Thank you, John, and really happy to be back, into the CPO arena. I'm Hervé. I'm a professor and researcher at EIPM, a school located in Europe, really dedicated to purchasing and supply management.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Hervé. And remind you to turn off your camera. We'll bring you back on with the video after the presentation. And finally, last but not least, and of course, we're waiting for Joseph to join us, but Michael Cadieux, it's always great to have you. If you could turn your camera on and give us a little bit of background information, that'd be terrific.
Hey, John, how you doing today? Good to be here as always on the CPO Arena. Really excited about it. And my name is Mike Cadieux. I'm the former Chief Procurement Officer for Publicis Group, and now I am the founder of Procurement Foundry, our online community.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Mike. And now, if we could, I'd invite you to turn off your camera, and I'd like to welcome Eyal Rosenberg, who is the co-founder and CEO of Nipendo, and Director of Marketing and Business Development, Elons Friedman, to turn on their cameras and turn over the reins of the segment to both of you. Welcome, gentlemen. Glad to have you today in the CPO Arena.
Thank you very much. My name is Elons Friedman. I'm Director of Marketing and Business Development, and with us we have Eyal.
Hi, hello everybody. Happy to be here and excited about the opportunity. My name is Eyal Rosenberg, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Nipendo.
So with your permission, John, we'd like to give a quick overview of what Nipendo does and then dive into a short video. So Nipendo had developed an end-to-end RFP-to-pay platform that provides full process automation for all purchase-to-pay processes in all spend categories. I'll leave it at that for now. And Eyal, if you could launch the video. It's a short video, and then we'll dive into a deeper presentation.
If your company works with a large number of suppliers, you're likely familiar with the complexity of interactions around the various purchase-to-pay process types: purchase orders, shipping, receiving, invoices, payments, attachments, and the like. The complexity comes with a huge cost around such activities as manual processing, verifications, follow-up, and exceptions handling, as well as the associated errors, discrepancies, and even possible fraud and money leakage.
If I could interrupt you, if you could do pause in the video.
Process automation platform, which automates all purchase-to-pay processes.
Sorry? starting the
If
video.
your company works with a large number of suppliers, you're likely familiar with the complexity of interactions around the various purchase-to-pay process types: purchase orders, shipping, receiving, invoices, payments, attachments, and the like. The complexity comes with a huge cost around such activities as manual processing, verifications, follow-up, and exceptions handling, as well as the associated errors, discrepancies, and even possible fraud and money leakage. In comes Nipendo, a cloud-based robotic process automation platform, which automates all purchase-to-pay processes. Nipendo streamlines and simplifies interactions with suppliers across direct and indirect spend categories for both goods and services, and with respect to all supplier types and sizes. All this without having to replace existing ERP systems and while leaving existing purchase-to-pay processes untouched. Using RPA, machine learning, and AI technologies, the platform makes purchase-to-pay processes touch-free and error-free, provides process governance and enforcement, compliance management, discrepancy resolution, and much more, all managed through a centralized control center. Nipendo's customer base, including such companies as Intel, HP, and Unilever, represents a variety of industries. These companies and others benefited from Nipendo's rapid and cost-competitive implementation and from our ability to onboard a staggering 90% plus of suppliers in less than 6 months. If you're on the road towards digital transformation, let us show you how we can help you get there faster and more efficiently. Leapfrog your organization to the era of RPA and AI with zero risk, proven technology, and guaranteed success.
Okay, so what we've seen over the past more than 10 years with our customers is that the main problem that they have is that their interactions with suppliers are very labor intensive, and that translates into the speed at which they work, involvement of errors. It's a costly process. There's sometimes fraud involved, etc. Overall, an inefficient process. And then what organizations try to do is they try to address these inefficiencies either through disparate solutions that might address one aspect or another, but are not holistic in nature, or they use systems or solutions that don't cover the entire process, for example, which cover only indirect spend, as an example. What we've done is we've created a platform that sits on top of existing ERP systems and actually automates all purchase-to-pay processes between an enterprise and its suppliers with minimal change on their part, which is something Eyal will go into more detail in a minute, and covering all P2P processes without requiring the organization to modify those processes. We automate them. We are holistic. We are an end-to-end solution. And Eyal, I'd like you to go maybe into a little bit more detail in a second, just to point out that we're also able to onboard over 90% of the supplier base using a set of technologies and methodologies.
So just to give you a brief overview of the solution structure and how it is working, we have the buyer on one side. We have the buyer's ERP, which the entire enterprise and users are working on their existing ERP systems, no change in that, maintaining the existing procure-to-pay processes. And we connect to these processes through an interface, a plug-in interface to existing ERP systems, which is installable within days and operated, as mentioned before, in a short 10 weeks implementation. And then there is a platform, the Nipendo platform is connected to these processes. And on the supplier end, we have we are allowing suppliers to operate with their customers, to interact with the customers in multiple ways. B2B interactions, we have plugins to over 50 systems, ERP systems or accounting systems, package, the most common package applications in the market for suppliers. Onboarding supplier to a B2B is a practice of two to 3 hours. It's simple, it's easy, it's not costly. But there are other communication opportunities. As we all know, the portal and the mobile app, but also the email. And through our platform, but this is an important information, over 85% of the volumes between the suppliers to their customers is going through B2B, and that is thanks to the fact that it's very simple and very easy to connect through a B2B. Yet over 70% of the suppliers in numbers are smaller companies that are using the other methods. And as we all know, everybody likes to interact through email, and this is still in fact the most common way for executive and people to interact between buyers and suppliers. So I would like to focus on how we automated this capability to create a B2B transaction from email, either if it's open text email or if it's an email with attachment attached files. So I will focus on that for this presentation, which is one cool feature that we like to describe. So an email will be sent to the Nipendo platform. We have email bots that will take the transaction and figure out who's the supplier, who's the customer, and will extract the data from the email or extract the PDF if that's or the image from the email that is sent. It will run through an OCR capabilities, which is part of the platform. But as we all know, OCR is not bulletproof. It's actually error prone, and some vendors will claim that OCR has over 90% of accuracy. But what they're forgetting to say that it's 90%, over 90% per every field. So if you multiply 100 fields or 60 fields that is in the same document, you will get accuracy rate of 0.9 in a power of 60 or 100, depending on the numbers of data fields that are in the document. So we can rely on that. And what Nipendo is doing is gathering the data from the process of this specific supplier with the customers, or the open orders, the open lines, all the shipping notifications, all the good receipts, and is figuring out whether this from the OCR, whether this transaction is an email, is an invoice, for example. It will look for which lines in the purchase order, according to the shipping notification and the good receipt, are eligible to charge on, and it will blend all this data and do an auto match, meaning taking the OCR data, taking all the data that it gathered through the process, and with the notion that the data gathered from the process is fully accurate. And now we are matching what we have accumulated and what we extracted from the OCR. By that, we are getting to almost 100% accuracy, improving the OCR from approximately 30% that currently, if we're just using the OCR, to almost 100%. Yet, there's still discrepancies and still errors. So it'll go to a process, to a workflow of discrepancy management and resolution, which will use chatbot to interact these discrepancies to the suppliers, to prompt the supplier and ask him for his intervention in order to fix any problem if there are any discrepancies. In most cases, over 95% of the cases, we can figure out the accurate data on our own. And if not, this chatbot will reconcile the discrepancy with the supplier and eventually create a full error-free transaction to the customer ERP system. And that's a feature that we wanted to emphasize, as our concept is to create an environment that both the customer and the supplier are still working in their existing existing processes, existing way of communication without any interruption. So I think, John, I'll pause here for additional, if there are any questions, to elaborate on that.
All right, Eyal, let me ask you this. In terms of the remainder of the presentation, I see you have a slide that's already up there, but are we ready to open up the Q&A going forward?
If there are no questions, then I will just elaborate a little bit more about the capabilities. We are seeing here the platform where in the center, this is the Nipendo RPA platform, and around it is all the modules that are supporting the existing modules of the customer. And as emphasized, the main concept is to regardless of which are the underlying system, we have this interoperability layer that is taking the data from the various systems of an enterprise and bringing it through a unified funnel into a unified language of the system, and allowing all the different processes which require different interaction to do just the things that are human labor and manual interaction. Do the follow-ups automatically, do the governance of the process, instruct the supplier how to interact with the customer, what for this specific process, what is required. If for example, is a document needed, or a certification, or scheduled deliveries, or anything that is required on the process, with the main focus of just replacing the current manual work. And since we are focusing on the P2P, it enabled us to do it, to build best practices templates, which is installable and operated within weeks of implementation over the existing processes and the existing ERP systems. Just a brief overview to some of our customers. As we said, different vertical markets, different geographies, different blend of processes, procure-to-pay processes, and the common for all of these customers is we're getting to over 90% of their spend, total spend, direct, indirect, services, goods, everything. Over 90% of suppliers connected and participating in the process, and over 95% touch-free and error-free transactions to their systems. And I'll end here.
Perfect, Eyal. That is terrific. Thank you, and to Ilan as well. So what I'd like to do is invite you to turn off your camera, Eyal, and invite Cheryl to perhaps comment on her what she saw, any questions, things along that lines.
Okay, thank you. So that was very interesting. Never had seen or heard of a solution quite like that. So I do have a bunch of questions, but I'll save some for my colleagues. So how does this differentiate from something like an SAP Ariba? That's a solution for this type of quoting activity as well?
Yes, so practically many of our customers are using SAP. I think the vast majority of our customers, and some of them are also using Ariba. What we are helping our customers to do is to leverage on the automation, on the process governance and process management, which is lacking these systems. And let's remember that we're talking only on the interaction between the supplier and the buyer. So if they want to do something that is related with the process governance internally, they would do it. But when we talk about the interaction between them and the suppliers, we have the capability, built-in capabilities, to do all the reconciliation, all the process governance, not just enable suppliers to have their portal, but the portal is interactive. It explains them what to do and guides them through. And when we're talking about large enterprise that has maybe 15 different business processes, procure-to-pay processes, it's very convoluting for suppliers to understand what they need to do. So these capabilities enable us to expand dramatically the adoption rate of suppliers, and also cover type of spend that are not covered by Ariba, for example. So we're covering the 80% of the direct spend, which is typically not in Ariba, but just in SAP. So you can think about it as a control center for for managing the process and doing the reconciliation of invoices on top of all different type of processes and above all the underlying systems that you currently have.
Interesting. And do you purchase it as a one-time purchase with service agreements, or is it a subscription type service, or how does the company?
It is a subscription type service. It's a software as a service solution, and it is priced like there is a one-time implementation fee, but beyond that, it's just a subscription based.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Listen, great questions. If you could turn off your camera, I'll invite Michael to ask his questions.
Hi, guys. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate running through that with us. I have a couple of questions around your supply chain. So when you talk about your vendor and supplier portal, do the vendors and the suppliers inside of the portal have to be currently conducting business with your existing clients, or are you building a supplier pool that new clients can pull off of at any given time? And does that pool, let's say I'm doing business with one of the clients, right? Does that mean that now as a supplier, I become available for all the other clients as well? Or is it matched one-to-one, or is it one-to-many? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. One of the uniqueness about the solution is not just the portal, but I'll elaborate. I'll first address the portal question. But yes, it is a one-time, what we call connect once, communicate with all. So both customer and supplier are able to connect once. And one of the ways for us to address the adoption rate for suppliers is enabling them a lot of value-add services. And one of the value-add services is if you connect to Nipendo and send your invoices through the platform, you can self-provisionally use the platform to send the invoices for everybody. And when we say everybody, I mean that you can set up an EDI connection to some of the customers. You can set up portal connection to all the rest of the customers. Email will be sent as well. So you can use it not just to the customers that are on the Nipendo platform, but all customers. And each of your customers might work in a different way, and we support it, and we offer it as a self-service solution like many other capabilities of the platform. But one thing that is more important is the B2B integration. We all know in the procurement side, when connecting customer to supplier, on a B2B from system to system, it's a point-to-point connectivity. And on Nipendo, we have a unique technology, which is patented, by the way, that is connect one, communicate with all, also on the B2B interaction. So if you have a QuickBook and you want to connect to Intel, nobody will ask you who are you connecting with. You just download the plugin for QuickBooks, you connect to Nipendo, and now you can communicate with all customers on the Nipendo platform transparently without doing a one-to-one. And the way we do that is to involve our RPA and AI capabilities and not connect one-to-one anybody. Like they're connected to the unified language of the system, and we have these algorithms that aggregate the data to abstract the data and normalize all the content so everybody can talk with everybody, even on a B2B. And we have many large enterprises like IBM, Medtronic, Johnson & Johnson that connected once to Nipendo and on a B2B, and now they can communicate with anybody regardless of the data requirements, the structure, the content, the specific rules. All of that is being offloaded, and all the heavy lifting is done automatically by the platform.
Follow-up question, John, if that's okay?
Yeah, no problem. Please go ahead.
So can you tell me a little bit about the scope of your platform so far? Do you see any particular areas in which you're starting to excel? Like, for example, is it in supply chain, or is it in indirect procurement, or is it in materials or services? Is there any place where you're doing more business right now than other? Like, where's your high points?
Yeah, so I would say the sweet spot for our solution is the direct spend and supply chain. We have solutions for example, for a consignment, vendor managed inventory, for a different type of direct spend, like agreement buying, where you have orders, agreements with thousands of lines, and you have hundreds of shipments per line, and the more complicated part. But as we can cope with this type of complexities, in many cases, in most of the cases, customers that are being exposed to these capabilities always take it down to also to the more simplistic processes, and want to add more and more of their spend into the platform. But specifically, supply chain and direct spend processes are the key areas which we can demonstrate are the value of the robotic process automation, of the process governance, of the process compliance capabilities, the discrepancy management, all the interactions with suppliers, and that's our sweet spot.
Nice, great.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And let's turn it over now to Hervé. The floor is yours. Questions that you have for Eyal and or Elon.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Sounds really interesting. The first thing is, so you go beyond simply e-invoicing by being able to use a wider diversity of way of conveying the information and reconciling all the information so you get better accuracies. Is that right? I'm trying to recap what
exactly, yes. So the ability for the platform to manage all the procurement and supply chain processes enable us to do the e-invoicing and to do all the reconciliation in a very smart way. Like we know quantities, we know shipments, we know what was received, we know the prices, we know the currency, and if there are interest rates on specific things, we know how to calculate that. So we can get, and that's an interesting fact, with more mature customers of ours that are working more than few years, we are getting to more than 99% of invoice accuracy on the Nipendo platform. You can think about it as not just an e-invoicing. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question that goes a bit further. So for instance, you have different nomenclature for products, okay? And maybe someone is calling something according to a supplier nomenclature or to an international nomenclature or to another one. I mean, is your system automatically recognizing that, you know, what might be a bearings that has, you know, one of the vendor nomenclature is actually, you know, a bearings that has this international nomenclature?
Yes, so this is also something that is very unique and also help us to reduce time of implementation, where our system can automatically link between the item line on the customer purchase order and the item line on the supplier invoice. And that is done partially by this algorithm that I explained in the email, the auto match. So we know how to link between the order line, the shipping notification, the receiving, and the invoice. And by doing that, there is a simple checkbox on the customer definitions whether he would like to switch the supplier item data with his item data. And then in case they don't want to hassle with master data synchronization, they can do that on our platform. More than that, since this is all, as I said, going to a unified dictionary, unified language, we know how to, and we are building, of course, with the permission of the customer, a unified catalog, where we know that on these purchase orders to different suppliers are sending different items, and we know how to link.
That's clear. That's answering my question.
Yeah.
And maybe if I got time, measurement. So what are your clients measuring in terms of benefits and magnitude of benefits?
So we have two measurements. One is automation rate. And if you go into our system, this is the dashboard that you'll see: automation rate and volume of spend. So these are the two measurements. In every implementation, we want to get to over 90% of total spend of enterprise, and over 95% of error-free interactions, invoice interactions, because the errors are popping up and floating in the invoices. So we are measuring the invoice reconciliation, the invoice error-free rate. And these are the two main measurements that we have. On the implementation side, we have also a measurement of how much time did we invested, and obviously it impacts how much the cost of the implementation was. And our benchmark is between 150 and 250 hours from our side to do end-to-end implementation on SAP with a plugin, testing, rolling out, configuring the system, defining it, all together. So this is in the first phase of the project to implement. We measure how fast we do that, and when it's going live, these are the two measurements: automation rate and volume of spend, total volume of spend.
All right. Thank you, Eyal. And if you could turn off your camera and mute, as well as Elaine. I know you're already there. And if I could invite the panel to turn on their cameras and bring everybody up all at once in terms of this. I'd like to go back to Cheryl first to start with what we'd call what are the good things you've seen, but also if there's any critiquing that you feel is necessary with what you've been presented. Again, thank you, Eyal and Elaine, for the presentation.
Yes, again, thank you. Very interesting. Lots of solutions, some things we didn't touch on, like supplier financing, something that we're actually looking at with Stryker now with our suppliers as we push out payment terms. So I think there's, it was just interesting to me. Like I said, I had a lot of questions. My panel asked, my colleagues asked some of them. It's a different solution that we haven't seen before. And I think it's something that I'm glad we're promoting it here, because I had never heard of, a system quite like this, or a tool quite like this for companies. So I think I'd like to know more about it, honestly, before I could actually critique it. But I think it's an interesting tool, and thank you for presenting it to us.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Let's go to Mike. What are your thoughts? Good things or any kind of critiquing you might have?
Yeah, sure. So listen, for me, large organizations, highly complex organizations, multinational organizations, like the clients that they're listing, the devil's in the details on any one of these things, right? When you're trying to process 500,000 to 2-3 million transactions per year, anytime you can create automation in that process is a win factor for me, right? I think that the value proposition needs to be defined a little bit more. I think that one of the things I'm a little bit concerned with is, and I understand where they're playing in that market where I've got an ERP system and I'm trying to automate some of those processes and I'm creating a relationship between the vendor and the supplier base. I think the big concern I would have would be that the Fortune 100 are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on RPA development on their own, right? I mean, I know 5 Fortune 50s right now that have their own RPA divisions. I think IBM is paying people at IBM to actually create RPA solutions for them. Every employee that comes up with an RPA solution gets a stipend, right, for a bot or some type of process automation. So I think that it's very interesting to me. I like the fact that they've gone down that path with their product set. I would have loved to have heard a little bit more around some of the things that Cheryl said, which is a little bit more of the product as far as supplier finance and things like that goes. But overall, I think it's a good position. Everybody's looking for automation, John, right? Again, there's 2 ways to save money. Either you can figure out how to process something faster and cheaper due to payroll, or you can negotiate a better price on the widget, right? And if you can do both of those things at the same time, and you can provide that value proposition clearly and succinctly to your clients, then fantastic, that's great. I think the other thing I probably would have been interested in getting a little bit more into, but we didn't have time, was where's their footprint right now? How big are they in Europe? How big are they in the United States? What are they doing to try and move into some of the bigger manufacturing or sub-manufacturing spaces in the US as well? So I'd love to peel the onion a little bit more on that as well.
Well, why don't we do this very quickly, just to that last question, Eyal or Elan, before I pass it over to Hervé. That last question with regards to Michael, do you have anything to add or a comment on footprint?
Step in here. So in terms of footprint, first of all, the company started out in Israel, and so a lot of its activities are in Israel. But we also have a presence in the US, in Boston, and that presence has been there for a number of years. So in Israel, we're extremely strong with a number of very significant multinationals that Eyal showed a slide earlier, companies like HP and Intel, KLA, Tencor, these kind of large global players, but also Israeli players that are global, like Teva Pharmaceuticals, Israel Aerospace Industries, Elbit Systems, cross industry, global players that work with a very large number of suppliers. Yeah. In the United States, we have an active strategic partnership strategy, which is growing very rapidly. And actually, you'll be hearing about it over the next few days in terms of different press releases that will be issued. And so we're moving very fast in the U.S. market now with both partnerships and also direct approach to companies.
How old is the company? Just curious.
Over 10 years.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, just over 10 years.
Great.
All right, Elan, thank you. I remind you to turn off your camera again, please. That would be great, because I'm going to hand it over now to Hervé. Positives and any kind of critiquing. I mean, you asked an interesting question about nomenclature and that which is pressing as well. What are your thoughts with what you've seen?
I think when we talk about automation, there's a lot of different ways to automate. And one of them is just to build more and more complex templates where everybody's supposed to fill in exactly the right information. And here, I think one of the good points is you don't need to do that. You just, you can grab all the information in the format it is and pre-filled as much as possible. And then the system can learn to complement. So I think that's a very interesting way, of going about automation, not forcing people to do into, manual input that are really following very, very structured templates. So I think that's really a good point. Now with a lot of, you might know Arthur C. Clarke, he had a sentence, you cannot distinguish technology from magic. Whenever you see new technology, it always looks magic. And in many ways, in the presentation, I would have loved to touch a little bit more the magic, because I'm hearing, I'm listening, I'm getting input on the magic, but I couldn't see it yet. So that'd be my input. It'd been really great to have a bit more of a real case where you see the added value from the technology point of view. There's lots of words, that are very attracting, like, smart, intelligence, AI, OCR. I'd love to see and touch and feel.
All right, Hervé, that is terrific. Listen, we've run just a little bit over time, but Alain and Eyal, again, thank you for taking the time to enter the CPO arena. And as always, panel, you've had some great perspectives, insights. It's certainly a solution that I haven't seen before as well. So for me, it's a continuous journey of learning here. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. And to you, the audience, again, this is available, will be available on on-demand basis. And as always, a brief synopsis will be released shortly after we broadcast this sometime over the next couple of weeks, and you can download for free as well. So until we come at you over these virtual airwaves, and we'd like to remind you that the invitation is always open for you to enter the CPO arena. Thank you, everyone.